than usual because it's important that we have a detailed register of exactly who is joining our meeting today, so that we can ensure that we get our sums correctly in line, so that we do properly administer the votes that we have to do to ensure that we are effectively and appropriately amending the various parts of our statutes and regulations that we need to do. I see we're now up at 30 and still growing, so that's good. Please do bear with us. I will start in a couple of minutes because I can start the introductions rather than you just listening to me wittering about the logistics. The important critical number is required for when we start the putting up the motions and then voting on them. So as you all, I'm sure, are very well aware, the purpose of our meeting today is to approve the Canadian incorporation of our Secretariat. This is an important step for us as an organisation, and an important step to protect us going forwards in terms of not only how we organise our administration services, but also ensuring that we are appropriately legally established and can manage any legal challenges that may come our way. We're not anticipating it at the moment, but from good prudence and management, this has been a necessary step for us to protect the organisation were a legal challenge to arise in the future. So if we just move on to the next slide, I'll introduce the officers and our executive director, who I am sure are well known to you all. Micheline, our past president, has shouldered a lot of the burden of getting us to where we are today. And I thank her very much, along with Mathieu. They both have invested a lot of time and effort in being not only present at many meetings with associations, but also with our lawyers and a whole host of other parties that were required for us to ensure that we got to where we are today. And we got to where we are today in a way that we believe, subject to where we get to later on in this meeting, that our member associations will be happy with the outcome that is now proposed and the motions that are before you. So a big thanks to Micheline and Mathieu. And Bezena, our president-elect, I'm hoping is joining, but I do know she's traveling.
I'm on.
Ah, Bezena, hi, welcome. So I didn't see you. I only get to see a snapshot of who's here and so on. So welcome from your travels. It's good to have you joining us today. So we've got a full team of the officers and the executive. Mathieu is supported by a number of his team, who I will be turning to for various technical support as we go along. Right, I think we should move on with the next slide, which is just a bit of information on our procedures. We're not going to do a roll call. That's simply a timing issue. and a logistics issue, please do ensure that your Zoom name is clearly showing as the country FMA that you're representing, and then your first name. We are only allowing the one delegate per FMA. We don't want to get any confusion as to who's voting for which particular FMA. So just one delegate is allowed as a council meeting participant. You'll all be automatically muted, but you will have an opportunity to raise your hand and to speak. You will appreciate that we have got a lot of people here, so we will potentially be looking to limit contributions to a maximum of 3 minutes. Hopefully that will be enough for anybody to say what they need to say. But we've spent a lot of time engaging. Mathieu, you wanted to comment?
Well, no, I just want to give you the first good news of the day. We are at the 69% now, and there's still a few people coming in. So we have reached our quorum for this meeting, Mr. Chair.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Mathieu. That's very encouraging. And the first hurdle that we needed to ensure that we met. So yes, Mathieu and his team will be monitoring the chat, the Q&A, and the raising hands. So if you want to contribute, please do so through one of those means, and they will raise my attention to your wishing to participate, and will then allow you to contribute. So if we go to the next hand, this is the key process that we will manage for each motion. We don't allow amendments of motions, so I will be asking for a mover and a seconder. Again, the raise hand feature will facilitate this. Then there will be a poll, and the poll will invite you to make a vote. The poll will not be visible to you, but it should, I hope, be visible to me. So I will have an idea of how many people are voting, and we're hoping that after a minute we will get a full vote, and then I will be able to announce the result. We will have to potentially, if there isn't a clear majority via the poll, go to a weighted vote analysis, which the Secretariat will carry out to ensure that where FMAs have effectively more than one vote, or their weighted vote is higher than one, that it's correctly recorded and added up, so that we're then clear that the motion is passed according to the strict rules of our statutes. So that's what we will be looking to achieve. So if we move on, please. You can use the chat feature that I mentioned earlier, and that will be monitored. This is available to observers via our normal YouTube channel, and a recording will be available afterwards if anybody wishes to see exactly what went on. So we're now up to the formal part of the meeting today. You've all seen your agenda. So the numbers that we're seeing are recorded here. We are looking at a 75% total attendance, which is great because we needed 2/3 to ensure that we were legally able to amend our statutes. So that is a good start for our meeting today. And that means that we can go straight to the business of the meeting, which is, as I've said already, the Canadian incorporation of the Secretariat. So we did have a pre-council webinar where we went through this in detail, but just to recap very briefly for those of you who weren't on that webinar. The key issue here is that we need to regularize the legal structure of the IAA. We're incorporated in Switzerland, but we don't operate in Switzerland. But we're not incorporated in Canada, which is where we do operate. So that gives us a legal exposure. If somebody were to take us to court, either for an employment matter, for a contract matter, or any other matter for that case, we would have to address that in Canada, which is where our operations are based. But legally, we're a Swiss organization, and we would end up having to pay 2 sets of legal costs and court costs, as well as potentially create a lot of confusion because of the organization that we are. So, how are we proposing to address this? Well, the way forward that we've identified is that the Secretariat will be established as a Canadian not-for-profit entity called IAA Services. This is a standalone company. It has one single member, which is the IAA, which is, of course, controlled by council. And the not-for-profit's board of directors will be exactly the same as the executive committee of the IAA to ensure proper alignment of the decisions, the operational decisions of the IAA. So the EC will control the services entity based in Canada exactly in the same way that they currently look after the operations of the IAA through the current structure. So that's what we're proposing to do. Now, in order to achieve that, we have to go through a number of steps. The most important one being the changes to our basic statutes. And I'll come on to each of these in turn, but just to quickly run through what we've got to cover today. As well as our statutes, we've got to change our internal regulations and our bylaws. We've established, and this is one of the very helpful things that came out of the lengthy discussions that we have with many FMAs, we're establishing a formal memorandum of understanding, which is legally binding, between the IAA and the IAA Services entity based in Canada, so that it's very clear exactly what IAA Services is responsible for. We've then got to elect the board of directors of IAA Services, which is, of course, as I've just said, the exact same constituents of the EC, the Executive Committee of the IAA. We've then got to approve the initial funding of the entity that we've now created. And we have got to, well, we're not changing the budget, but we're presenting the format for you to understand how it splits between the existing entity and the new IAA Services entity based in Canada. Finally, we'll approve the master document, which you've all seen, which is the document that records everything connected with this to ensure that we have proper corporate memory. So those are the key votes that we're going to cover today. And I, first of all, need to have approval for the agenda as I've just presented it to you. So please could I ask for a mover and a seconder to approve the agenda as presented?
I see Cartina as a mover, Juan Carlos as a seconder.
Great, thank you very much. So this could be our first test of our virtual voting. Please, would you now approve the agenda of this council meeting? And you have 3 options: to approve, to vote against, or to abstain. Okay, so this is the first bit of the technology. We have 100% approval. I thought I might see that building up, but I don't see it building up. So It was a surprise to me as it was to everybody else. But hopefully not a surprise that you've approved the agenda. So that means we can move on now to the first key motion, which is the changes to the statutes of the IAA. And these are very simple changes and hopefully very self-explanatory. We are first of all emphasising that the registered office of the association is in Switzerland in Article 1. We're taking the opportunity to make a minor change to our Article 3 to reflect our mission. And then we are looking to change Article 24, which is the article that covers the establishment of the not-for-profit, and that's on the next slide, please. Secretariat being based in Canada, managed by the board of directors elected by you, the council. So those are the only changes that are being made to our statutes, but they are clearly the most important parts of the agenda and motions today, because they require the greatest support. To change our statutes requires an 80% threshold. So that's what we hope to achieve now. So I now need to ask for a mover and seconder for that motion. So please, could I have a mover and seconder?
I see Tarmo as a mover and Ed Budlowski as the seconder.
Excellent. Thank you very much. So that now means that we can move to the vote itself. So please, when it comes up on the screen, can I invite you to vote? And this time I am seeing it build up, so that's good. Don't know why I didn't see it the first time around, but I am seeing it build up now. So we've now got 23 voted, 25, and encouragingly, it's so far very supportive of the changes that are proposed. There are 3 abstentions so far, and so far none voting against. But please do continue to vote. I'll take a few more minutes because it's important that we get as many people as possible voting. This is our key vote. I'll wait another 5 or 10 seconds and then we will end.
You're good, Mr. Chair. We have enough of the votes. In the chat, Gabor appropriately mentions that you went a little quick to ask for the vote and didn't offer the floor to interventions on the motion.
Thank you very much, Mattia. That's my mistake. I should have given the opportunity to somebody to contribute. If anybody wishes to contribute, although we've had the vote, I will take a contribution, and assuming that there hasn't been anybody against the vote, I will just allow one more minute, well, a few seconds if anybody does want to contribute, but I will declare that passed. And thank you very much. I will take any comments if anybody wishes to comment at this stage. And I will remember as we go through the rest of the motions to ask for contributions before I ask for the vote. Thank you for the reminder, Gabor. So I think we could share those results if they haven't been shared already, but I declare that motion passed. So we now come on to the changes to our internal regulations. And that requires a number of additions to include the references to the responsibilities and duties of the Secretariat and our Executive Director, references to our articles and now the inclusion of IAA services. We've added some of the duties of the Secretariat that relate to the IAA, and there's been a slight renumbering of our articles. So the changes are as follows. Around the responsibilities and duties of the Executive Director and the officers. And then in the next regulation around the management of the Secretariat. As you've seen all of this already, I'm not going to read it all out. I'm taking it that you've had a chance to read and understand, and we've had the webinar earlier, so you should all have had, I hope, plenty of opportunity to see what's proposed. So we then come on to the motion itself, which now requires a 2/3 majority. And please may I ask for a mover and a seconder of the motion.
I see Wilhelm as a mover and Derek as a seconder.
Thank you very much. And now I will remember to ask for any contributions if anybody wishes to say anything about this. Do we have any contributions, Matthew?
Not yet. There was a legacy hand by Neil. I think that was just he went back down. He has an X now.
Okay, seeing no no one wishing to contribute, I'll therefore ask us to move to the vote. So please, can I ask you to vote? As before, you have 3 options: to approve, to be against, or to abstain. Oh, it's building up a lot quicker this time. We're getting practiced in our voting, so that's good. And again, we are seeing a small number of abstentions and a large majority approving. But I will allow it to build up a little further before I share the results of the poll, or when Mathieu gives me the signal that we are now reached the majority that we need, which I think is probably there, actually.
Yeah, it's probably 40 because we have staff and the officers who are not voting and the participants. So yeah. 40 is magic number.
So if we end and share that poll, I'm happy to confirm that we have approved the motion. So thank you very much. And we can therefore move on to our next motion, which is the bylaws and articles of incorporation. We have to approve the bylaws and articles of the new IAA services entity. And that is, again, as documented and as discussed before, there is only one member of this entity, this corporation, and that's the IAA, which is controlled by you, the council. And the board will consist of the board of directors, which will mirror the existing executive committee of the IAA. So the more detail is in the master document that you've got. I therefore would like to ask for a mover and a seconder of the motion that, on the recommendation of the executive committee, we approve the bylaws and articles of association as presented to you, the council.
So the mover, I see Alexander from Hong Kong, and the seconder, Cartina from IFOA.
Excellent, thank you very much. And I'm now happy to open it up for discussion if anybody wishes to make a comment or contribution. I'll wait a few moments.
Just checking, Mr. Chair. Neil, I see you have an X beside your name. Is that like a legacy X, or is there something you want to contribute?
No, not really, please.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you, Neil. Okay, well, seeing no contributions, could I ask you to vote, please, on this motion that we approve the articles of bylaws? And again, it's building up very quickly as we're getting used to the electronic voting. Nearly there, very similar pattern to all of the previous votes. So a small number of abstentions, but the large majority approving. I'll allow it a few more minutes. We only need a simple majority for this vote, but I will just wait just in case there's anybody else still wishing to put their vote in. Okay, I think we've plateaued there. So thank you very much. Happy to share the results. And again, happy to record that that motion is approved, that we are approving the bylaws and articles of association of the IAA services entity, which is based in Canada. So thank you very much for that approval. That takes us on to the next motion before us, which covers the memorandum of understanding between the IAA and IAA services. And importantly, it's clear that this is a legally binding agreement. And we've had that confirmed by our lawyers. A number of associations were keen to ensure that we had an agreement which was legally binding. I will stress again that you, the IAA Council, control both entities, and you control both the appointments to the EC and the appointments to the board of IAA services, which are aligned as the same entity. But theoretically, if for any reason IAA Council thought it was appropriate at any time, it doesn't have to be. But we are wishing to ensure alignment whilst there is no reason not to. And the memorandum of understanding covers all the detail of the operation of the of IAA services, particularly around things like the collection of membership fees, which will be collected by IAA services, but will be received by the Swiss entity. And then there will be budgeting and taxes and things to be managed by IAA services. I can stress, as I did in the pre-council webinar, that this does not create any adverse tax implications, but it does create a slight additional tax complications for monies that we may have to recover. But there is no eventual net impact in terms of any taxes that we have to pay. As I'll come on to in a minute, there is the budgeting will be going forward will be separately presented for the IAA Swiss entity and IAA services. So budgeting will be slightly more nuanced, but essentially the overall budgeting remains the same. We will have to have additional bank accounts because we'll have Swiss and Canadian accounts, and that's all part of the administration that's documented. So all of that is contained within the memorandum of understanding, which has been part of extensive discussions with many member associations and has been within the pack that you have seen. So I can now move to the motion which is again on the recommendation of the EC, that you approve this, and I'll emphasize it, this legally binding memorandum of understanding between the IAA and IAA services. So I would ask for a mover and seconder, please.
I see Bill from the live section and Juan Carlos for Mexico that jumped very early on.
Excellent. Thank you very much for that. So I can now open for any comments or discussion that anybody has on the memorandum of understanding. Mathieu, do we have any contributions? Or again, can I?
No, not seeing any. I still see Neil with your X, but I saw you with your hand raised, so I guess you just pressed the wrong button there, Neil, unless you want to make a contribution. Okay, assuming that's not
I wanted to move, but I was too slow.
Oh.
Next time, Neil. Next, we'll put you on the shelf for the next one.
Neil.
We'll keep you on the next one, Neil.
Okay. Right.
Thank you all very much, which means I can therefore move to the vote. So please could I invite you to vote on the motion, which is on the recommendation of the EC, that you approve the memorandum of understanding between the IAA and IAA services. And again, a very similar pattern of voting is coming through. Thank you very much. And we are slowly building to the same sort of level of approval, which is good. I think we've now achieved a plateau and the majority we need. So can I ask that the poll be shared? And I'm happy to confirm that that motion is approved by you, the council. Thank you very much. And that means we can come on to our next and I won't say near final, but we're through the big motions, but these are all equally important motions that we need to settle today. And that's the appointment of the board of directors to the IAA services, which, as you will see on this next slide, is identical to the existing EC, which is controlled by you, the council, and will continue to be controlled by you, the council. And whilst you continue to approve it, will continue to mirror exactly the constituents of the EC. So those are the names for this year, and they will change each year as we change the membership of the executive committee of the IAA. So with that detail, may I ask for a mover and seconder? And if Neil, you're quick on the button, you could get in there for the motion that, and this is on the recommendation of the SPC, the Strategic Planning Committee, that the council approves the election of IAA Services Board of Directors as I have just shown it to you.
Mr. Chair, I have the mover Neil Tago from, and I have the seconder Mike Lombardi from the SOA, just to mix things up a little bit.
Okay, thank you very much to Neil and to Mike. May I therefore invite any discussion if anybody wishes to comment or contribute to this motion appointing the Board of Directors. Not seeing anyone wishing to contribute or make a comment, I'm therefore very happy to move to a vote. So please, could I ask you to vote on the appointment of the Board of Directors? And again, it's building up in a very similar pattern to previous votes. We've now got most of you in. I'll allow a few more seconds to get everybody in. You're getting very well practiced at this. Thank you all very much. Speedy voting. And I think we're just about there. Yeah, I think we can share that vote. Thank you all very much. I'm happy to confirm that that motion has been approved, and you have appointed the new board of directors of IAA Services. Thank you very much. That now means that we have to move on to the initial grant of assets to this entity that we have now established in Canada to allow it to operate. A very obvious thing that is required. It needs funds, and the initial assets that are intended to be transferred are detailed here. They are very obvious in terms of the capital assets and funds that need to be transferred. And essentially, it's the money that's needed and the assets that are required for the executive to carry out their normal day-to-day operations. And on the next slide, you can see that detailed a little bit more numerically in terms of the actual cash amount that is transferred to IAA Services on its establishment on the 1st of April. So that therefore takes us to the motion, which is on the recommendation of the EC, that you approve that this grant of assets to IAA Services. So please, could I have a mover and a seconder?
I see Lisa Wade as the mover and Mike Lombardi as a seconder.
Thank you very much. I'm very happy to take any comments or discussion or contributions on the grant of assets to IAA Services. So if anybody wishes to make a contribution, please alert the executive and I will take a contribution. Mathieu, am I correct in believing that we've not seen a contribution? So thank you very much, which I take it with all of this as a great thanks to not only to the executive and to Micheline and all those involved in going through in great detail, explaining exactly what we're doing, but you too for participating in that and ensuring that when we come to the council meeting today, you're fully up to speed on what is proposed and fully understanding of the motions before you, because that's really helped us ensure that this has been a smooth process. So thank you all very much. Okay, so that means we can go to the vote. So please, could I invite you to vote on the grant of assets to IAA Services? Right, I think we're virtually there. I think we can end the poll there. And I'm happy to confirm that motion has been approved. Thank you very much. Again, with a very similar overwhelming majority, which is extremely encouraging. So thank you. We're definitely on the home straight now. Two more things to formally to vote on. Firstly, I mentioned the budget at the outset. It's important just to emphasize again that this is no change from the budget that you approved in Lisbon. But what we do need to do is show how this is going to be split between our different entities. I've already commented that there will be no change to the recipient of your membership fees. They will go to IAA Swiss. but they will be administered by IAA Services. And that means that there's going to need to be transfers between the Swiss entity and the Canadian entity, which will be done via invoicing. There will be a tax implication, but we will be able to recuperate all of that tax. It'll cause us some administrative management, but there will be no net tax impact to us. And we will continue to report as you are used to seeing us reporting, but you will, particularly initially at least, get additional reporting, because we will show you how the budget is split and applies to the two different entities. So if we just move on to the next slide, this will start in Q2. So Q1 will be as we were already anticipating, and therefore the IA will have operational expenses and income in Q1. But from Q2, all of our administration operations will be in IAA Services. And we've designed it so that IAA Services will operate on a net zero P&L balance. So we will budget for income to equal expenditure. Inevitably, that's not how it will end at the year end. As any budget, we will have a small adjustment, positive or negative, as the outturn is slightly different from what we anticipate. So that's going to look like as set out on this slide. And what you have here is the first column shows the budget for the Swiss entity, which, as I said, contains all of the operations for Q1. But then IAA Services is established from April the 1st and contains all of the operations from Q2 onwards. And as you can see in that second column, balances to zero. And then the final column, which is the total budget, is exactly the same budget that you have already approved. So this is a presentational thing. It doesn't materially change anything, but we will be showing you this additional detail as well, to help you get used to how it builds up, and for as long as you want to see that extra detail split between the IAA and IAA Services. We're very happy to show that level of detail, but of course it's the overall budget which is what Council is particularly focused on, and that's the budget that we have approved. So that is what we are now looking to approve. So it's not a revised budget as such. It's the same overall budget that you have already approved, but it's revised in the sense that it's now split between the IAA and IAA Services, as I've just shown you. So please, could I ask for a mover and a seconder for this motion?
I see Cortina and Lisa.
Thank you very much, both. So now I'm happy to open up for any comment, contribution, or discussion on how we are presenting the budget going forward.
I don't know. I would like to speak, but I don't know how to raise my hand on this thing.
Okay, Richard, please contribute. Nice to see you.
Thank you. I must admit I've got difficulties to understand the presentation, so maybe it could be done afterwards, because when you've got consolidations in companies, you got add up things, especially in the third column. I don't understand why you've got 1.536 as revenue, and after you offset it as an expense. So it's
okay, so Richard, that is because it will be transferred from, so it will come into the the overall IAA budget in Q1, and then in Q2, it's transferred to IAA services because that's the administration fees that are required for the IAA services to operate.
Okay, but when you do normal accounting, when you do consolidation on accounting in private sector, you don't add up the things, because I've got the impression that the column 1 is column 3 minus column 2, but I don't know how to say that in English well, but refacturation, normally you can't just add them like this.
So
anyway,
column 1 is the existing entity.
Yeah.
Column 2 is the new administration entity. So the money that you're talking about, the 1536, is received into the IAA Swiss, and that's shown as being
No, IAA services, you mean?
well, sorry, it's received into IAA services and is then billed to the IAA. So the IAA Swiss entity makes a payment of 1536 from IAA Swiss to IAA Canadian. So 1536 comes out of the IAA Swiss entity and into the IAA services entity. So it is an expense in column 1 and a contribution in column 2.
Yeah. Okay. So, but in final, it will not cost more money, roughly the same amount of money with the new system versus existing one.
Correct. It's exactly the same.
Okay.
It's exactly the same budget that you've already approved. Please, Richard, do reach out to Mathieu or myself if you've got any other detailed questions. We'll be happy to answer.
Thank you.
Have we got another contribution? Did I see Mathieu?
Yes, Ramona from Ireland.
Oh, excellent. Ramona.
Hi,
welcome.
Charles. Noel, how are you? Hopefully a quick question. So again, apologies, I'm late to the game here. So I know this has been approved, the budget previously, and this is just a reformatting. But I was just wondering, there are going to be additional governance and reporting, presumably from being the Canadian incorporated entity. So are we happy that we can cover that from our existing staff, or I'm just wondering, has that been allowed for? You know, as we mentioned, tax complications, all these other things are going to require resources and administration. So are we happy that that's allowed for from our existing resources, or can be covered by it?
So we are comfortable that the existing budget remains appropriate. I don't know whether, Mathieu, you want to comment on whether you're...
Yeah. I mean, it's a good question. The IAA right now, and as Charles mentioned in the opening, we are already treated as a Canadian entity because we have nothing in Switzerland. So we are already subject to the IAA, the Canadian taxation, the Canadian reporting standards, Canadian audit standards. So that's already happening. So we are very well aware of these and how these work. So we're just going to create another entity, and we're going to work. We confirm these even with our auditor, for example, that to add a second company under the format that we have right now is not going to create a ton more work. Really, the only thing that's going to create more work administratively is we have to invoice each other to transfer funds from one entity to the next, and that's subject to taxes in Canada, but we can recoup that. It's just more paperwork that we need to send in and make sure that we get that money in, and a little bit more reporting, but it's all formats that we're used to already.
Okay.
It's just going to be slightly more volume, and what we committed to do as well is to measure that amount of additional work during the first full year of operation, and then to be very transparent to council, see if there's things that we hadn't expected or the amount of work that's actually linked to this new format. So we will be able to report that after we did our first full audit.
Okay.
And I'm happy to confirm that Mathieu has not been given any extra staff for this.
Yeah, unfortunately.
So thank you, Ramona. Did I see a couple more?
There's Mike and Wilhelm after that, yes.
Mike.
Yeah, I'm going to pick up on a comment by Richard from France before. This may help, or maybe it'll confuse things more, but I noticed that the periods covered in the 3 columns, the first one, I believe, is a full year, but the second one is only 9 months, etc. So maybe part of the reason why it doesn't consolidate the way we expected is because those are different periods. Is that relevant, or am I just off base?
No, that is relevant because the IAA services will not start to operate until the 1st of April. So it isn't a normal consolidation, and there will be this required transfer from the IAA Swiss to the IAA services, which is slightly affected by the fact that services has only got 9 months of operation. So that's a correct observation, Mike, and maybe that is helpful for Richard. So thank you. And Wilhelm.
Yeah, a similar remark. I think the green part is a little bit confusing because a P&L, if you have different periods, is always a problem. But think about, I think next year, if we look at the same slide, I think we will see a very simple IAA budget, because currently what you have here is 3 months of full life of IAA. Next year you will have mainly 0 there on the blue part, and the rest will be in the IAA services. Next year that will be quite simple. And if you want to consolidate the two parts, then the balance sheet is more interesting, not the P&L. Yeah, but it's fine for me. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Wilhelm. I hope that has helped. Are there any other comments or questions? I'm not seeing any. In which case, I propose to move to the motion and ask for a mover and seconder.
Charles, wait a second. You had we already had a mover and seconder, anyways, because we are.
Oh, sorry.
We are in the discussion phase.
We've been in it so long ago.
But I saw Ed raise his hand. I'm not sure if it was a legacy and contribution or if it was a vote.
My fault for confusing people. Okay, in which case we can move to the vote. Thank you all very much. Please vote on that motion. I think we're pretty much there. Thank you all for contributing. It's built up pretty much as the previous vote. So hopefully that has been clear. And we will make lots of efforts this year to ensure that we are clear in presenting the finances to you, the council. So I think we can consider that motion passed. Thank you very much. And that takes us on to the final formal motion for today, which is the approval of the master document that was sent to you as part of the pack, the agenda papers for this meeting. It's important because it's our institutional memory. It's how we ensure that we have a full record of why we've done what we've done and exactly what we've done. So it's as much a reference document as something that's legally binding, but it clearly contains many documents that are legal documents. But it also contains a lot of additional information that informs the decision process that we've been through. So it, I hope, then provides a firm basis for any
Charles, I think I don't hear you anymore. I'm not sure if others hear you. I think you're cut out. Okay, yeah, so people are mentioning no. Let's give Charles a second. Otherwise, we're going to revert to Micheline for that motion if Charles cannot complete. We had to have a little bit of surprise before the end of the meeting. It was going way too easy. Let's see if Charles reconnects. Give him 1 second.
No, you know, the Brits have always got this Brexit attitude.
I see he's just left the meeting. Let's give him a second to come back in.
Sean, you started a delay. That's caused the problem. It's always, you know.
In the meantime, Juan Carlos, is that because you wanted to be the first one to be the mover, or do you have a question or a contribution to make?
Juan Carlos, you're on mute.
Okay.
One question: where is the logo? When you tap to have to raise your hand, because I can't find it.
It's usually at the bottom, Richard, and
Yeah.
I have it in French, so that's probably the same icons than you. It's called reactions.
Ah,
It's a
okay,
face.
good. I see it.
reaction.
Okay.
Click on this, and then you have options.
Okay.
Of the reactions, yeah.
And Juan Carlos Mathieu is confirming that he wants to move.
Okay, perfect.
And yeah, and I guess we could maybe ask a seconder right now as we're waiting. And I think I see Neil.
Yeah,
So
Perfect.
okay, we'll update. Should we ask for if anybody wants to have any discussion?
Please.
Anybody that wants to point anything to us on this regard? I don't see any. Is it fair then to go to vote, Mathieu?
Correct.
Yes. So let's have a vote. I don't see anything with that, but that's okay. I mean, it's fair. Mathieu, you just tell me when it's ready.
It's going up. Give it a few more seconds. We're almost there. We usually have about 38 votes, 39. We just got the 38 now. Perfect. And if you can end it and show the results, please.
Okay. Oh well,
Motion-
it's okay.
Micheline Mathieu, I'm back.
Oh,
Okay.
there you go.
So we have proceeded with the mover, seconder. There was no discussion, and now people are voting. And I think it's still coming in, Mathieu, or is it done?
No, it's done. We stopped it. So 34 in favor, 4 abstention, no against.
Okay.
Motion's approved.
So congratulations, Charles, and thank you very much, everybody.
Micheline.
And it's back to you now. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. And apologies all. For some reason, the joys of virtual meetings, I lost all internet just then, and I still lost all internet, so I'm currently on my phone. But can I thank you? And I think it's appropriate that Micheline took the final vote because she was the one that's carried this through to this point. So a big thank you to Micheline, to Mathieu, and to everybody for contributing to making this a successful outcome today. I've just got a couple of other bits of business to mention before I close the meeting. We are going to issue a ballot on Thursday with 3 items that we want you to vote on, which is to ratify the statement of intent of the AI task force to improve the regulations for the ICA 26 and the admission of Benin. Please do vote on that, and we will look forward to receiving your votes on that after we have issued the ballot, which, as I say, will go out on Thursday. And then finally, a reminder that our next council meeting will take place in Seoul. I look forward to seeing many, if not all of you there towards the end of May in South Korea for what I'm sure will be a very interesting and enjoyable and important meeting. So I look forward to seeing you there. I've just been notified that Wilhelm wants to make a comment before we wrap up. So Wilhelm, the floor is yours.
Just a final remark, and thanks for having the possibility. Thanks to Mathieu and the officers, because we had the possibility after Lisbon to discuss open and unclear issues, perhaps. And that was a lot of work, I think, for both sides. Unfortunately, near to Christmas, where we all have usually other priorities. But thanks a lot for that. And now I think the outcome was very positive today, and all the best for the new company, for the new entity, and go forward. Thanks.
Thank you, Wilhelm. And I'd like to just add my thanks, particularly to the Swiss and the German and the French associations who contributed to a lot of those discussions that we had over that tight time period. But I am delighted that we've now got to a place where we have got overwhelming support for the new structure. And I think that puts us in a much safer and stronger position going forward. So a big thank you to all. There is a final Q&A slide. I will happily take any other final comments if anybody wishes to make any. But if there aren't any, and I'm just get a final nod from Mathieu.
A lot of hands tapping.
I've got
Excellent.
Richard. I would like to say something.
Richard, go ahead.
Okay, again, like William, I really see that the work in advance has been extraordinary, and for me that just joined lately because Thomas asked me. It was very helpful, all documents and this and that. And the last remark will be a bit humoristic. I mean, now Erdogan, Putin, and other people will be very jealous of the approval rate of this meeting.
Thank you, Richard. Yes, I am sure many politicians would like to get such overwhelming votes. And it is very reassuring and encouraging that we have achieved that and achieved such a strong consensus today. So thank you to everybody for participating. It's been good to see you all. Apologies that my internet blipped at the end there. And I look forward to seeing hopefully as many of you as possible when we all gather in Seoul in May. So thank you all very much and goodbye.
Thank you.
See you.
Bye.
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 Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Well, Chairman. Take care.